Hey neighbors, I want to talk about a bill that Councilman Mark Conway brought up at our neighborhood meeting recently. It's House Bill 25-0066. And I want to be upfront here. Conway seems to be against this bill, but at the meeting we didn't get the full rundown of what's actually in it, not the specifics at least. And I think when something this big is one committee vote away from passing, you guys deserve to know exactly what it says before it becomes law. So I read the hearing packet, all 106 pages of it, and I'm going to walk you through what this bill actually does, what it doesn't do, and the details that didn't make it into our neighborhood meeting. What is this bill? This bill is called the Housing Options and Opportunity Bill. It's bill number 25-0066. It was introduced by the mayor's administration, and it's sponsored by Council President Zeke Cohen, along with council members Dorsey, Grant, and Blanchard. The core idea here is to create a new housing category in Baltimore's zoning code called dwelling multifamily, low density. In plain English, that basically means duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes, 2, 3, 4 units in a single building. Right now, most of Baltimore's residential zones, you can only have one dwelling unit per property. And this bill would make it legal in virtually every residential zone across the entire city, including neighborhoods like mine, to convert or build up to 4 units. That's a significant change over what you can and can't do now. The last time that conversions like this were widely allowed was before 1999, when the city banned them in lower density zones after declining population made them seem parasitic on the housing market. And the city's own planning department notes that assumption may not have been correct, and that the 1999 ban didn't account for affordable housing needs. So there's a real policy debate here. So let's just get into the details. The by right piece, and here's the part that got glossed over at our meeting, and it's arguably the most important detail. So what does by right mean, and does this bill use it? By right basically means that if your property meets the requirements on paper, you can do it. You don't need a public hearing, you don't need neighbor notification, no community input, it's just permitted. You apply for a building permit, you meet the specs, and you build. Now, the original version of this bill made all of this 2, 3, 4 unit conversions by right everywhere, full stop. But an amendment was introduced by Councilmember Parker the night before the February 12th hearing, and that pulls it back somewhat. So under the Parker 8 amendment, converting to 2 units is still by right. If you want 3 or 4 units, that requires what's called a conditional use approval from the Board of Municipal and Zoning Appeals, the BMZA. A BMZA hearing is a public process. There are posting requirements, neighbors get notice, and there's a public hearing. That's a meaningful protection for 3 and 4 unit conversions. Before a duplex, there's nothing. So if your home is big enough and meets the lot requirements, your neighbor can convert a duplex tomorrow, and you'll find out when the permit goes up on the door. That's the by right piece, and it wasn't explained at our meeting. So the square footage rules, that's one thing that also didn't come up in the meeting. The bill does include minimum square footage requirements, and this is really important. This is actually what is going to keep a lot of Baltimore City homes from being able to do this. To convert to 2 units, the building needs to be at least 1,500 square feet of interior space. Basements don't count. So for 3 units, you need 2,250 square feet. For 4 units, 3,000 square feet. The city's own housing department ran the numbers here, and of all the single family homes in the R1 through R8 zones, only 3.5% have enough floor space to qualify for a full 4 unit conversion. That's actually a pretty small percentage. This bill is not going to turn every row home in Baltimore into a fourplex. The math on that just doesn't work on most properties. What it does mean, though, is that larger homes, bigger row homes, detached houses, larger semi-detached properties are the ones most likely to be affected. Now, is that a concern in Lake Evesham or your neighborhood? I mean, you know your neighborhood better than I do, but the square footage floor is at least something, and it's a detail that deserved to be part of the conversation at our meeting. The companion bills are also something I think is genuinely important that got zero mention in my meeting. So this bill doesn't stand alone. It's part of a package of 5 zoning bills introduced together by the mayor and the city council. Now, the 2 companion bills that matter the most here, alongside 250066 are House Bill 250065, which eliminates off-street parking minimums. And right now, new residential developments in most zones have to provide a minimum number of off-street parking spaces. This bill eliminates that requirement entirely. So if House Bill 65 passes alongside 66, someone could convert a row house to 3 or 4 units and be required to provide 0 additional parking. The DOT says they'll monitor long-term impacts on traffic and parking, but there's no firm plan. And now House Bill 64, bulk and yard amendments. This one reduces how much setback distance is required from property lines, and it increases how much of a lot can be covered by a structure. So combined with 66, it makes conversions significantly easier to execute without needing variances. The planning and finance departments both note in hearing packets that these bills are designed to work together. So evaluating 66 in isolation misses part of the picture here. I want to be completely fair here. There are real arguments in favor of this bill, and they're not nothing. So every single city agency reviewed it, and it came back favorable. Planning, finance, housing, transportation, zoning appeals, the law department. That's not typical. The affordability argument is the big piece. So Baltimore is short tens of thousands of rental units, and affordable to low and moderate income residents are the most impacted. So 4 out of 10 renters in this city are spending more than 35% of their income on housing. That's a crisis. The missing middle argument of this is that over the last decade, Baltimore has built almost 0 2 to 4 unit buildings. Nearly all new construction has been either single family homes or large apartment complexes. Duplexes and fourplexes, which historically were more affordable, have basically disappeared from the market. On top of that, you have the vacancy argument. Baltimore has over 12,000 vacant buildings, and yes, the mayor and city they've done an amazing job to get that number down to 12,000, but the BMZA report in the packet points out that many of these can't be renovated as single family homes because the economics don't work. So a $200,000 renovation on a house worth $150,000 when finished, it just doesn't make sense. So allowing 2 to 4 units changes the math and could bring vacant buildings back to life. Examples from other cities come to play here. Portland, Minneapolis, New Rochelle, they do show that similar reforms stabilized or reduced rents compared to peer cities. Minneapolis, for example, increased housing stock by 12% and rates grew by just 1% compared to almost 14% for the rest of Minnesota. So the supporters aren't making things up. These are real data points that we should consider. Of course, there's also real concerns, many of which were raised in letters and brought up almost immediately in my own community meeting. The official hearing packet from residents across the city mentioned there's no affordable guarantee. Bill increases supply, but nothing in it requires any unit to be priced affordably. The supply reduces prices theory is contested, and even supporters of supply-side reform acknowledge it can take years to impact prices, if it does at all. In the meantime, conversions in higher value neighborhoods could generate expensive rental units, not affordable ones. And then the investor activity. Several letters in the packet raise concerns about absentee landlords and outside investors treating Baltimore neighborhoods as a financial opportunity. And that's been going on for years already. And what we don't want is that to continue. The bill has no owner occupancy requirement, though Councilmember Parker did propose an amendment that would require owner occupancy. It's not clear that amendment made it into the final version, so who knows? There's also a question here about the process. One resident wrote that, and this stuck with me, that multiple amendments were released the evening before the hearing. So unless you have supernatural comprehension skills, there's no way to vet these amendments before the Land Use Committee. The Parker 8 amendment, for example, was filed February 11th for a February 12th hearing. That's a real transparency issue, regardless of which side you're on. Then there's the schools, trash, emergency services, just the overall impact on DPW and everything. One letter from a resident raised the point that more households means more strains on schools, waste collection, emergency services, without a guarantee of proportional tax revenue increases. The finance department acknowledged that short-term revenue gains will be limited here. So where does this leave us? This bill is not the simple affordable housing fix it's sometimes framed as, and it's also not the neighborhood destroying catastrophe some opponents describe. Like most things in the city policy, this reality is way more complicated. What I do know is that a bill this significant, one that would change zoning rules for every residential block in Baltimore, including mine in Lake Evesham, it deserved a fuller explanation at our neighborhood meeting. You should know about the by right duplex piece. You should know about the companion parking bill. You should know what the square footage rules actually say. You should know that the night before amendments are a real transparency problem, regardless of your politics. So if you want to go deeper, the full 106-page hearing packet is public record. Search House Bill 25-0066 on Google or wherever. You can also watch the full Planning Commission hearing on YouTube. It was heard at the hour and 37-minute mark. And if you have an opinion, support it, oppose it, want amendments to it, the Land Use and Transportation Committee is the body to contact. Your council member matters here too. I'm just a neighbor who read the packet. Make up your own mind.